Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Discovering Dawson's Creek on Morgan Hasn't Seen TV here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. About halfway through season 2 of Dawson's Creek now, Jeannine, and what a 2 episodes we have to discuss today. I feel like the season has hit its form now.
Yeah.
And I feel like after watching these 2 episodes, I can comfortably say they were my favourite 2 of the season so far.
Okay.
And that I feel like... Now, I know it might seem strange to say, given that we're like a season and a half in now, but I feel like I'm physically in Dawson's Creek, Cape Side world.
I like it.
Particularly after these 2 episodes, I simply think because so much seemed to happen emotionally for everybody in these 2 episodes. There seemed to be threads that were completed to a degree, even, which, you know, is quite odd for the middle of a season, but it felt like that to me. It felt like long threads that were somewhat completed, and where you go from there with them is like a new story with particular characters.
Okay.
And I think I like that about it, but I am happy and comfortable to say now that I think up until this point I've been interested, I've been excited to watch new ones that we've done and kept up with it. But after these 2, I feel like I finally fully get it. And to why, yes, you're screeching and holding your Dawson's Creek binder like that in very excitable ways. Because I think these 2 episodes were the best kind of soap opera that this show can put out.
Yes.
The best kind of teen drama, not the annoying kind, not the ones that feel like, even though that some of it felt potentially back and forth, you know, as we've gone through the seasons, the time, everything seemed to have reason in these 2 episodes to me, and
it was set up well previously, so when you get there, it doesn't feel jarring, it doesn't feel out of nowhere. Even when there is that back and forth, it makes sense to what we've seen before.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think these were 2 great episodes. Full Moon Rising and The Dance is what we're talking about today. Are they particular favourites of yours?
Full Moon Rising definitely is a favorite. The one that we have coming next is also a favorite, the all-nighter. So I'm excited to get to that one for sure. But I really do love Full Moon Rising for sure. The favorite of the season.
Interesting. Well, do we want to get straight on into it then, Jeannine? Get the binder out and let's talk about Season 2, Episode 5, Full Moon Rising.
Okay, so synopsis for Full Moon Rising, episode number 205. Blame it on the moon.
No.
On edge. All of these descriptions start with like a big, bold, all in caps, like starter sentence. So blame it on the moon in all caps. On edge because of the anonymous. On edge because of the ominous full moon, Dawson and Joey's budding romance is overshadowed by the continuing deterioration of Mitch and Gail's marriage and Dawson's shattering discovery of his parents' Thursday night secret. Meanwhile, a promising first date is interrupted when Pacey gets disturbing glimpse into Andy's home life and Jen's older man. And Jen plays with fire when she dates a mysterious older man.
Yes, she does.
Yes.
I think the simplest... I think we go from simplest story to most elaborate story in this episode. I feel like that's a good thing to do going forward, because I think sometimes we get a bit caught up in one major thing going on. and don't give everything enough time because we don't have all day for these episodes and this kind of thing.
Yes.
So I feel like we start with Jen, who went on this or invited this older man, this Vincent guy that we met
Yeah, that she
last
had met.
time.
And he finds her,
Been just a
asks her
while.
out. Yes, he comes over. They're having these flirty conversations. And then things get a little hot and heavy, and they're on the table making out. She's kind of telling him, okay, I think, we've gone far enough for tonight. He's like,
Yes.
no, I want to keep going. We've only gotten to the best part. And she's like, no, I think we should stop. And he's not stopping. And then she lets him know that she is, in fact, 16.
Yes.
And when he is taken aback, Grams walks in and repeats, yes, she's 16. Get the hell off of my granddaughter. Get the hell out of my
Yes,
house.
I like Grams in this episode.
Yes.
Again, she doesn't do a great deal in the episode, but she comes in and just is protecting. She is protective. She is steadfast, and she is just like, "What are you doing? Get out!" But she's not condemning Jen. Even she's in that frame of mind.
She's worried about her.
Please don't do this. Please don't do this. Please don't do this.
Slip back into those old ways. You're making such good progress. I know you're a good person, but please don't slip back into these old ways, and please don't disrespect me. Having this man all over my table in my home and bringing those ways into my home is incredibly disrespectful. I will not have it. I will not stand for it. I do not want to see that from you. So this scolding feels very much like from a place of love and concern. It doesn't feel like the past kind of arguments we've seen them have. And I like that we can feel the difference in this fight between Jen and Grams. And it's really, I think, sobering for Jen. She needed to kind of hear that, because even in that situation, she could have, if she had fully slipped into her old ways, she would not have been asking him to stop. So the fact that she even thought she had control of that situation, and then she ultimately didn't, you could tell there was a bit of fear there of her kind of, of somebody kind of pushing her too far, and her maybe feeling like she's made a little bit of progress. So I like that it's a sobering kind of realization for her to realize that she's not that same person, but she's still trying to be that person because she's just kind of lost right now. And that Grams is really...
She has sorry, do finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and that Grams is sensing this change in her and doesn't want her to slip back.
Yeah, definitely. She also does have a fight with Abby Morgan in this episode.
Oh my gosh, yes, the slap.
Which, yes, I was most happy about, to be honest with you, because you had told me that, the friendship, the partnership of Jen and Abby is a particularly troublesome one in this season. And I don't know if that's come to an end now. I don't know if that's, something that happens again. I don't know.
It continues. Something very kind of crazy ends up happening down the line.
Okay. But this felt significant to me because it was... Abby's a very dominating person. She's a very domineering person. A very, I'm going to take charge of every situation. I'm going to make everything about me. And really just bounce back anything bad anybody says about me right back onto them. And Jen in lost mind mode, Jen in really down on herself mode, Jen in very, very insecure, not knowing what's going on in her life mode, manages to stand up to her wholeheartedly and give her a massive slap across the face.
Yeah, she tells her, because Abby won't shut up. Abby tries to come back and say, oh, we're friends again. It's fine. And then Jen is like, really? Like, you said some really crappy things to me. I don't think we should be friends anymore. Abby's like, no, water under the bridge. I didn't mean it. So then Jen kind of takes that in, is like, okay, I've been dying to tell somebody I have a date with Vincent. And as soon as Abby after all her talk about, "Oh, we're not going to let boys get between us, blah, blah, blah." As soon as she finds out that Jen now has an official date with the guy that she likes, she goes on
Yeah.
kind of calling her a bitch and going off again. And Jen keeps telling her, "Abby, just stop.
Mm.
Abby, just stop. Don't speak to me again." And Abby just keeps pushing it and pushing it to where Jen finally just turns around and slaps the hell out of her. And oh
Yes,
yeah,
very
that
nice.
that felt pretty good. Yeah.
It did. It really was. The slap heard around Cape Side, not around
Yes.
the world. It's not that significant.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes.
It's not Sidney Poitier over here, but
No, but
it's
it was pretty good.
it's a good slap.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe next up is Joey and her individual situation in this episode that we should talk
Yeah.
about.
So she has this kind of late night working session with Jack just because there's one guy there at the restaurant at the ice house who won't leave. He's just drinking cups of coffee, just sat there quiet. So they have to stay as long as they have a customer. So it's them alone, and she's kind of complaining about all the cleaning and stuff they have to do. And Jack is like really more optimistic about it. He's just like, well, so many different kinds of people come through here. It's a nice getting to see a great slice of life. And so he's kind of,
Yeah.
showing her this positive side of things and interesting her in that kind of way. And you can tell she's kind of liking the energy that he brings and his attitude
Mm.
towards things, on top of the previous episodes where we saw his interest in art. And he's bringing something different to the table that maybe Dawson's not.
Well,
And
exactly. He's way more chill than Dawson all the
yes,
time. And
and
look,
yes,
okay, as we'll get into, Dawson has a lot to not be chill about actually at the
yeah.
moment, which I completely understand him
Oh
for.
yes,
I actually, in these two episodes, completely understand Dawson's mentality for once and
yes,
fully get where he's coming from. Don't see him as being obnoxious or whiny or any of that typical stuff simply because of what's going on in his individual family life in these two episodes.
yeah.
But all encompassing, Jack is definitely more chill than Dawson anyway.
100%. So yeah, he's showing her a different way to look at things, and that's really interesting for her. Um, and it's clear that Jack has some type of crush or feelings for Joey.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so those are kind of on display in how he looks at her and things like that. Um, and the guy, they have a little issue with the power going out, and they have to save the lobsters and all this thing. And then the guy just kind of randomly helps them. And he
Yeah.
just hasn't talked all night, but then he tells him, "Oh, here, just unplug it and plug it in again and it'll work." And then
And then disappears in a
and then
puff
he
of
just
smoke.
disappears. Yes, and they look again and he's gone, and they're like, "This is really weird." And they don't think he's left a tip, and they pick up the napkin that he had, and he wrote this beautiful poem about not squandering love, and under the napkin is $100 bill.
Yeah.
So after they, Jack or Joey reads this poem about, not, about the moon and not,
Mm.
squandering love and all of this kind of thing, they turn off the little table light, and as Joey's about to walk away, Jack grabs her and kisses her under the moon. It's like the
Yes.
silhouetted kiss. So the way
Which
it kind of shot is kind of nice and very romantic, and she doesn't pull away or anything right
no, it's
away. She
I,
it
I
lingers
must
on for
admit
a
it
minute.
was I must admit it was rather surprising, though. I didn't quite see something like this coming yet, and I certainly didn't see it lasting as long as it did quite yet. This feels, it felt to me a little bit, well, I don't want to say rushed, but rather quick in the season.
Yeah.
And like I've said before, I think during our season 2 discussions, it feels like everything hinged on Dawson and Joey getting together. And as soon as they got together, it was just like, right, break them up as quick as possible. And, give them any reason to fall out with each other.
Yeah.
After 1, 2 episodes, what was it? Him reading a diary
Little
and things like
diary.
that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, well, come on, can we not have a bit of time sat with the two of them?" So this is maybe another kind of instance of that for me. But this, it's had its seeds planted, and I kind of, I
Yeah,
don't
it's not
hate
out of
that this
nowhere.
happened. It's not out of nowhere. I don't hate that this happened from a story point of view. It just surprised me that
Well,
something
yeah.
like this would have happened. And I think a conversation that occurs between Joey and Dawson in the next episode regarding this whole situation
Mhm.
really was very impactful. I think for me, I enjoyed that
Yeah.
very intense conversation that happened.
Yeah. Yes, no, I get what you're saying when you think it could easily be portrayed as, oh yes, they're together. We need to create conflict, so we got to break them up. But I think they've laid enough groundwork in terms of Joey's character from even the start of season 1, with
Yeah,
her obsession with Dawson, that plays into her, and it makes sense for her to have this feeling that now that she has Dawson, what else does she have beyond that for herself?
yeah,
So when we get into that in the next episode, like, it makes perfect sense. When Jack is kind of showing her a different romantic side of things that she hasn't had, or somebody even showing interest in her that's not Dawson, that's kind of, I think, intriguing to her as well. And they kind of make this point at the beginning. Joey makes this point about, strange things happen under a full moon. Um,
oh
you
yeah, it's
know,
constantly said.
yes, humans are made up of so much water that the moon pulls people just like they pull the tides and this kind of thing.
Yeah,
So they kind of establishes it like that's the theme of the episode, that, strange things are going to happen under this full moon. And so when this kiss happens, you're supposed to be surprised. It's supposed to feel kind of like out of
yeah,
nowhere because it's the strange thing that happens under the full moon. So yeah, they share this kiss, and Joey doesn't really know what to do about it. She goes to tell Dawson. She wants to tell him, but he has just gone through this whole drama with his parents.
mm,
He kind of is like, I don't want to talk about anything else. I just want to look at you in the moonlight kind of thing. So she's like, kind of tables that and says,
yeah,
and we can see on her face she's thinking, okay, I'll tell him later. I can't tell him right now. So
yeah.
it's not without trying that she wants to tell him. She wanted to immediately tell him, but it just wasn't the right time. So
No, and I think unfortunately with how the following episode goes, it's kind of forced the situation of the
yeah.
truth to come out when it could have just been left there, left as nothing between Joey and Jack,
Yeah.
and Joey and Dawson could have tried carrying on absolutely fine. As I think ultimately, even after the next episode, I think ultimately they want to a degree at some point in the future wise, right? But with the whole situation of the dance episode forces conflict together. That's the
Yeah.
point of a story structure, of course it is, but it does shove everybody into the same room, shove everybody into the same situation, and go bubble and boil, please. And obviously that happens.
Yeah.
Um, but it is interesting. Joey. I mean, I've always been team Joey. I'm a team Joey on this. I'm understanding Joey's mentality eventually
Yeah.
with all this situation. Definitely, I'm always understanding of Joey's mentality. It was just a very surprising thing to happen, I
Yes.
think.
Well, this definitely was the episode for surprises, as
It
kind of the
was.
theme of the episode. So, yeah, as the kind of wild things continue to happen, we get a big conflict with Dawson's parents.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, so they both have people over. She has a colleague over to talk business things. He has Tamara over to talk about buying this warehouse property for his restaurant. And they're kind of antagonizing each other in between hosting these guests. He's kind of untrustworthy, her with coworkers. Um, he is the one who asked for an
Understandably.
open marriage. So he's over here with Dawson's teacher, and is this a Thursday night activity? Which is at this point, they still have not really talked to Dawson about what Thursday nights are, that they're even having an open marriage. So Dawson can only go off speculation because they're not communicating with him. They're only kind of
see, this is my thing
other.
with see, this is my thing with this situation, right? Is would it have come across as bad? Would it have come across as explosively as it ends up coming across between the two of them and Dawson if they had have just spoken to him a bit more openly? Should they have spoken to him a bit more openly? We know him to be the kind of person that really likes to know what's going on, doesn't like to be left in the dark about things, does have that kind of obsessive personality, and is going to, his head is going to do somersaults if he finds out something's happening that he doesn't understand why something's happening.
Yeah.
So should they have talked to him, or is it really, as much as he is their son, none of his business what goes on between the two of them, even though they're his parents? I mean, what do you think about that?
Feel like based off of the relationship they've established with him and his parents, they should have told him, because it seems like they're very open, and obviously something's not working. He's asking, especially if he's asking and he wants to understand.
Yeah, like, what's Thursday night
What is
mean?
and
What
they
does
just keep
Thursday
ignoring
night mean?
him. Then I think, at this point, if he really wants to know, and it's a complicated thing, we need to at least sit him down and talk to him about it. So these kind of antagonistic moments happen as they're trying to host these two guests. The guests are hearing them kind of have these antagonistic things, and Dawson is just like fed up. So he calls both of them away from their guests, closes the doors, and has a straight up conversation with them. Like, what are Thursday nights? What is going on? Are you guys having an open marriage? Um, why is this happening? And Gail is very much like, ask your father. Like, I didn't want this. I'm only doing this because I was the one in the wrong. I'm the one who deserves to be punished. So I'm doing whatever he wants to make this right. Like, I don't know what else I can do. And I talked about last time as well. Like, yes, Gail was in the wrong, but also Mitch needs to just figure out what he wants, because him being so wishy-washy about this whole situation is just prolonging things. It's giving her hope. She just wants to know what to do. She just needs to know how to move. Like, if you want a divorce, I don't want that. But if that's what you want, then just pull the trigger on it. If you want to work on this for real, then let's do that. But Mitch is very much like,
it quickly turned into both parties essentially doing wrong. With Gail's obvious thing and Mitch now being so badly communicative with her that it's not helping either way, right? So, and it still isn't really helping either way with what happens in these two episodes, right? Because this particular first episode, this full moon episode, is so antagonistic between the two of them.
And he's even saying,
it's horrible.
Yes. And so when Dawson pulls them aside, he says some really harsh things to Gail. And so Gail kind of runs out of the room crying, and Dawson yells at his dad. He's like, "Dad, she is trying. Like, what are you doing? Like, go talk to her. Like, make this right. Fix this family. Like, what is happening? What can't you get past? After all this time, after these conversations, after saying that you're trying, why can't you just forgive her?" And then Mitch goes into this really great speech about what his dad taught him.
It's very heavy.
Yes, and then he kind of ends with, "But he never told me what to do when your wife cheats on you, and I never thought to ask," and he just kind of breaks down, and Dawson kind of has to console him. Yeah.
It's very heavy to see your you can only imagine, your father coming out to
Yes, this
just,
strong man.
yeah,
And just to see him kind of break down and you have to console him. And then I think Dawson needed to see just kind of how hard, like, he's not purposely trying to do it, even though it's very frustrating to watch Mitch kind of pull Gale around in all of these ways. Um, you can tell he just doesn't know what else to do. And so in
no,
this moment when he actually, he's trying things like he thinks he's got it figured out of what could potentially work, but this moment really just establishes that he doesn't know what he's doing because
no,
you know he doesn't know how to navigate the situation. So I love this speech when he kind of ends it with, my dad taught me everything I know, but he never taught me how to deal with your wife cheating on you, and I never thought to ask. And then he just breaks down. Just a wonderful performance from John Wesley Shipp too, like,
oh,
in this
ridiculously
moment.
great,
Yeah.
ridiculously great. But I mean, this is the first. Clearly, I think the first instance of Dawson in his life realizing that his parents don't know everything.
Yeah.
Like, even with what's happened throughout the show, and Gale did something wrong, whatever. This is the scene where I think Dawson realizes the humanity of his own parents,
Yeah.
and that's a big moment for anybody, right? And we
Yes, and
all
it's
have to
far more
go through those kind of
complicated than he
things.
thought it would be, because he's literally telling
Of
dad,
course it is.
Just forgive her. It's easy. Fix this family." But when he
You
sees his
can't be
dad have
doing
this
that.
breakdown, he realizes it's not that simple for him. It's not that simple in
Yeah.
general. And so Dawson, I think, needed to see that, and I think it's very hard for him to take, especially kind of knowing the dynamic of his parents from the start, all over each other, very
Oh,
loving,
yeah.
all this kind of thing. And he's the center of their world, so it's like, you know, if his parents aren't doing well, he can't really, he has only
Function.
he has only so few things that are really steady for him. And so when the kind of main thing is not steady, it
Yeah.
throws everything off kilter for him. So,
It is.
yeah.
It's very, very tough, and I appreciate the show for actually giving such maturity to this level of exploration
Yeah.
of a
Mhm.
conflict and of an issue and things like that. But for actually giving Dawson reason to be in his own head for
Yeah.
once, he's got actual genuine
To
reason
be
to
so
be in his own
melodramatic.
head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I appreciate that because it makes how he is then, it makes him, when Joey obviously comes along later, as we've talked about, to have this
Mhm.
discussion about Jack, him not want to remotely hear anything and to just sit there, be with, his girlfriend and just have a bit of peace.
Yeah.
And you get that for once, you actually get where he's coming from.
Yes.
And I like that. I appreciate that. The next episode, we see him go to all sorts of lengths to try
Oh.
and do things,
Yeah.
but I even understand that to an extent,
Mhm.
right?
Especially what he's
And
going through with his parents, so seeing kind of
yeah,
what happens, it affects him probably more than it maybe would. But,
and he's
yeah.
still 16, and we must remember that.
Yes, yes. And then we can just kind of close out this episode discussion with the last kind of big storyline, which
Yeah,
was Pacey and Andy developing their relationship, finally deciding to just go
yeah,
on a date. There's some confusion on where Pacey's going to be picking her up. So she goes to meet him at the movies. He goes to pick her up at her house. He meets her mom, who's perfectly kind and nice, and
oh yeah,
telling him all about the father's going to be home, and Jack and Andy's older brother, Tim, he's upstairs. He comes home from college to visit every few weekends. Why don't you stay for dinner? And
yeah.
everything seems really nice. Andy's kind
So
of running
it's a
around.
beautiful home,
Yes,
very well
yes.
kept.
And so Andy's looking for Pacey. She's like, "He wasn't at the movie." She goes to the ice house because there was mention of maybe meeting there. She asks Jack, "Has he come around?" No. And she realizes, oh no, Pacey's gone to the house. And so we're just kind of like, why is she so worried? Jack is like, I'm sure it's fine, Andy. I'm sure it's okay. She rushes to the house. She's telling him, oh, okay, my mom's upstairs. Let's just sneak out of here. And Pacey's like, no, that's rude. I don't want to leave. She invited me to dinner. And of course, he's taking it as her just being snobbish, not wanting her parents to meet him. And then
Yeah.
she kind of tells him what had happened. The mother was driving.
I mean, at this
Jack.
point, we are very confused, aren't we?
Yeah, so we
I'd
don't
just
know
like to point
why. Yeah,
that out.
we
We're
yes, we
very,
don't.
very confused
Mhm.
at this point. Andy is giving it this big, oh no, let's rush home.
Let's get out of here.
We can't possibly have Pacey going to my house. And we, like you say, we just think it's because there's this whole situation of a class divide
Of
or whatever it
snobbery or
is.
something.
Yeah.
Yes, like, "Why do you not want me to meet your parents?" So Pacey's kinda getting offended, and then she finally admits that Tim is dead, and so now we're just like, "Wait, what? Mom was just saying Tim's upstairs visiting from college, like, what's going on?" So then she kind of tells him the story that, Jack and her were always fighting for the older brother Tim's attention. Mom was driving, from the country club or whatever. She had a little too many drinks. She didn't see this truck car accident killed Tim. And then mom just kind of
Yeah.
disassociated and went into this kind of um, manic emotional state where she kind of conjures in her mind that Tim is still alive, that she's living her old life when in fact no, Tim is dead, and she, maybe feels some responsibility for that. So her mind is just kind of broken. And the father, he hasn't been around. He is in Providence with their business that's failing. He just calls and checks in every couple of weeks. Which the
Yeah.
father will come back at certain point and we'll meet
Okay.
him, and that'll be a situation with him and Jack, and it's a whole kind of interesting
No, okay.
storyline that comes out of the dad coming back. But yeah, so her mom is kind of not in a great mental state where she kind of has these moments where she's fine, and then she'll have these moments where she thinks Tim is still alive. So essentially, Andy's really scared to even admit this or share this because she doesn't want to be gossip. She doesn't want people, oh, my mom's crazy kind of thing. And
Which
so
is
she was,
completely understandable when you
yes,
actually you fully get her when when all this comes out. It's
yeah,
very, very, again, it's kind of this very, very intense, over dramatic situation to
yes.
be dealing with.
And she's taking on a lot in how she explains it, like, she's kind of in
Yeah.
tears, and she's telling Pacey how, Jack is kind of in the mindset with it that if he doesn't think about it, it's not really happening. So he
Mm.
doesn't really take it on to the degree that she does, and she's, like, the only one who can kind of manage her mom, and she kind of is taking it all on her shoulders, and so it's a big stress for her, and so she expects Pacey to go running for the hills, but he just kind of takes her in his arms and holds her and consoles her in this moment. And she's
He's
like,
very nice.
yes. And she's afraid, like he's pitying her. She's like, no, no, don't pity me. He's like, it's not pity, just come here. And so he, really is there for her in this moment. And so that's kind of where their story ends. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
we
and
all kind of
here
end
is
with
another
everyone
example of
in a bit of a
Pacey.
tumultuous place.
Yes, we do. And as I said, here is another instance of Pacey being this incredibly kind of genuine, honest, down to earth kind
Yes.
of person, and nobody ever thinking he is that,
Yes, which
right?
I love the speech that Andy kind of gives, because when he asks her, like, "Why do you like me?" And then she kind of goes off about all the things that she loves about him that he never gets to hear. So, yeah,
Yes.
Pacey just proving he's a good one for sure. So,
Yeah, and
yeah, we
that speech comes in the next episode.
yes, yes. So then, yeah, everyone kind of just ends reflecting, looking up at the moon, Jen kind of reflecting on
Mm.
her kind of scolding and the kind of fear she had with the Vincent guy and all of that, and Jack kind of reflecting on his kiss with Joey and his feelings, and uh Pacey and Andy holding each other, and Dawson and Joey kind of holding each other. So everyone just kind of having this reflective thing. A nice Jewel song is playing, and the moon, and all of that.
Yes,
So
very much so.
yeah.
All that intensity does come to a head, though, in
Yes.
season 2, episode 6, the dance, as we go back to the binder for the
Yes.
synopsis. I feel like we should start our discussion on this episode where we ended the last episode with Pacey and Andy, but go ahead
Okay,
with
so
the synopsis.
the dance, episode 206. Save the last dance for me. Joey's secret hangs heavy between her and Dawson as they reluctantly attend the homecoming dance along with Pacey, Andy, Jack, and Jen. Yet the dream of a perfect night ends in utter shambles. Back at the Leary home, Dawson is devastated when Mitch and Gail take the painful step of a trial separation.
Yes. Yes. Heaviness.
Yes.
Heaviness in this episode, particularly for Dawson, obviously. But let's do start. I think with Pacey and Andy, who it seems like they're pretty good. You know, going into the dance, they've had this nice realization with each other after what's just happened in the last episode, and let's all go to this dance. And Andy's even scolding them all for never going to dances and never going to school functions and things like that.
And just to have some fun. So we're seeing this really fun, lighthearted side of Andy. She kind of makes them all think that, you know, dancing could be great foreplay. So that's like what convinces them all to go to the dance.
But Pacey doesn't dance either.
No,
He's one of those
he doesn't
people.
dance. So she's been trying to dance with him all night and have this night with him, but he just like tells her the whole time he doesn't dance. And she's like, well, even just a slow dance. He's like, no, I don't dance.
Which I disagree with fundamentally. I mean, come on, just go and dance.
Yes. And then it's really kind of interesting. Joey showing a bit of this concern for Jen, seeing her around with Abby and saying, I don't like them hanging out. Maybe we should invite her to go with us. We're going as a group. Why don't we invite her to come to the dance? I'll leave it up to you, Dawson, if you want to invite her or not. So it's like, okay, that's really nice of Joey to kind of think of her in that way. And then Andy and Dawson get to talking and think, oh, you know, because Andy's like, oh, I want to bring my brother Jack. And he's like, oh, well, I can invite this girl Jen, and they're both single. Da, 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 da. So they try to kind of set the two of them up at the dance. So they all go to the dance. Jen and Jack are kind of having an awkward thing because obviously Jack wants Joey and he's constantly looking at her. We see Joey actively ignoring him. So it's like a whole kind of mess.
Which is understandable from Joey's point of view. Joey doesn't want to pursue that particular, or she doesn't think she wants to pursue that
that gets
thread.
Very interesting as that conversation kind of unfolds. But Andy's.
So I just like how Jen always seems to, well, by the end of this episode, and I know I'm skipping ahead, with the quote unquote setting up of Jen and Jack, right?
Yeah.
Jen always ends up liking people that like Joey instead.
Yes, which she said that. I think she say a line to that effect. So Andy's trying to kind of fabricate this great night for everybody and particularly create a nice moment for her and Pacey because obviously they are kind of developing into an actual real relationship. But Pacey's kind of just rebuffing her advances to dance all night. So
not being like horrible about it. He's just being this stubborn
like, I just don't dance.
No, I'm not
I just
dancing.
don't dance.
I don't want to do it.
And Abby kind of ends up getting worked into this scenario because she is telling Jen how she's gonna take Christy, the Ali Larder character that we saw Pacey kind of lusting over in that first episode with Andy. Her and her boyfriend constantly fighting. And so Abby's like, by the end of that dance, I'm going to be with him and they're going to be broken up. So we see the boyfriend dancing with Abby and Ali Larder, Christy in the hall looking all sad. And so Pacey kind of sees her. We see him even kind of watching her throughout the dance. And so he sees her in the hall. She's upset. He goes and talks to her, compliments her. It's like, you know, that guy doesn't know what he's missing out on. Any guy would, you know, be so lucky to have you. You know, my pulse just quickens just seeing you. You know, obviously
talk about pulses.
Yes. And so she's feeling down. She's liking the attention. And so she asked Pacey to dance with her. And so Pacey takes her in his arms and they slow dance in the hall.
Which I'd like to point out, I mean, I was just a little bit, not confused is the wrong word, but it's the word I'm going to use, of why he decides to do this after all these
Well,
episodes building with Andy.
think about who Pacey is. And think about this moment. This girl who's the most popular girl in school, a girl that we've seen him have this kind
Yeah.
of crush on. You know, it's this fantasy fulfillment situation, which he kind of mentions once he does actually get caught in this situation. You know, and he has constantly felt like this loser who no one would give the time of day to. So the fact that this popular girl is giving him the time of day, she's interested, she likes that he's interested in her and asks him to dance. He is, you know, as a guy and a guy who's constantly down on himself would take that opportunity to, you know, live in this dream sequence is kind of how he's viewing it.
Well, I guess, and
So,
he does
yes.
explain it as that, and
Yeah.
the way it ends once he
So,
is,
yes, I
should we
would
say,
cut Pacey a little slack. But yeah, he was very wrong in this moment to do that to Andy, who wanted to dance with him all night. And then she walks in the
yeah.
hall and sees him dancing with another girl. So as
I
soon
mean,
as he
that's the
sees
thing.
her get upset and run out, they kind of have a little bit of an argument. And he explains, you know, why he did it and that he just wants to have nice moments with her.
Yeah.
And then he and like it's also kind of like self-sabotage because he doesn't think he's worthy of anything real or anybody even liking him. So that's when he does ask her, "Why do you like me?"
Yes. I mean, look,
Yeah.
see, that was the thing in that moment. I didn't mind the conversation. I didn't mind the speaking to Christy at this particular moment,
Yeah.
the consoling, the complimenting, that kind of stuff. It's the dancing that I'm then just like, well, this isn't Pacey. What is Pacey? He's a pleasant
Pace.
person.
Yes, well, Pacey is also a guy who does not feel good about himself, and so when the dream girl asks you to dance, like, you
Yeah.
live in that dream for this moment because you don't think it's ever gonna happen again, that kind of thing. So, yeah, he's just very perplexed as to why Andy even likes him, and she's like, You're smarter than you give yourself credit for, you're funny, you're witty, I don't know why you're always so down on yourself because you're such a wonderful person, you're kind, you care about people." And she lists this laundry list of
Mm,
wonderful things about him that he never hears, that
never.
things that he just does because that's just who he is, despite how people talk about him and treat him, and despite how he feels about himself, he still manages to be that good
Mm,
person. And so the fact that he finally has somebody who's telling him that, who's acknowledging that about him, who's making him feel special, it was really nice to see somebody
yeah.
appreciate him for once, because we only ever see him get berated and you know, looked down upon in this whole kind of thing, and we've seen this really low opinion he has of himself. So ultimately they
Yeah,
kind
and
of
I understand that,
reconcile.
obviously. I understand the
Yeah.
low opinion he has of himself. I understand why that exists.
Yes.
I just maybe thought he, not that he does anything, not that there's anything overly wrong with going being nice to somebody else. It was just the actual fact of dancing when he's been I don't dance, I don't dance, I don't dance
Yeah.
the entire time.
Yes.
Then I
Well,
was
when
just like,
he's yeah.
what's he doing
Yeah,
that for?
it's sucky, but you can understand when he's presented with this fantasy scenario, it's
Yeah,
hard to
the
resist.
mentality makes
Yes.
sense
Yes.
from both their angles, from Andy's angle, from Pacey's angle. The mentality makes sense, and I think
Yeah.
that conversation slash argument that begins as an argument ends as just an understanding. That's why it ends as an understanding, because both their mentalities towards each other are very, very, let's continue, very, very
Yes.
positive, aren't they? So
Yeah.
that's nice. Eventually,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yes. So they do share a nice dance by the waterfront, and they end up having their first kiss there as well, and
They do,
so it's established that now they're pretty much, like, dating each other. So cute little
which we
situation.
enjoy.
Yes. Then we kind of go back into the dance. Jack and Jen are kind of having an awkward dance conversation. She's noticing that he's constantly looking at Joey, so she kind of makes that commentary of, I'm always into guys who like Joey Potter. And then Andy tries to switch things up with everybody. So she's like, Dawson, dance with me. So I don't have to dance with my brother all night. Jack, you dance with Joey, dance with your boss. So they're dancing.
No, I don't
yes.
want to do that.
And Jack is like, he's like, I can tell you're avoiding me. Like, I'm sorry, like about the kiss, but da 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 da. And she's getting like really pissed off at him. And so she's just like, doesn't want to deal with it. So she runs out. And Dawson's like clocking this, like, what is going on here? So he goes out there and he kind of confronts her and he's real with her, Jack. And he tells her, it seems like you're getting really mad about this for a different reason. Like, I think you're mad about this because you wanted to kiss me back. Like, you didn't pull away. Like, you let me kiss you. You kissed me back. I think you're mad at yourself for kissing me back. And that's why you're so pissed off, not because I kissed you. And even going into the situation, like that day at school, she actually, asked Bessie for her advice and tells her what happened.
Oh, yeah.
And Bessie is just like, yeah, well, he kissed you, right? Like, you were not at fault. So, you can tell Dawson about it and it's not going to be that bad because you didn't do anything wrong. It took you by surprise. It wasn't a planned thing. So she's feeling pretty good about it. And then when she actually ends up talking about it with Jack, she starts kind of getting irrationally mad. And that's when he realizes, I think you're mad because you liked it and you kissed me back. And you're mad.
And she realizes this when he says
but
that.
Of course, she doesn't want to admit it. And of course, right when he says that, who's right behind him? Dawson, looking angry, confused. Jack kind of stumbles away.
With all Dawson stuff going on anyway.
Yes. And Joey runs into the bathroom. And so then they walk back into the dance. And he confronts Jack, like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. I mean, it happened. And, I'm not going to apologize for it. Like,
because I do it again.
I do it again. And then,
have a great deal of confidence, Jack.
Very much a ton of confidence. I do it again. And so Dawson punches Jack in the face.
Another proper smack across the face.
Punching. Yes. And so everyone's just like, oh, Dawson, what'd you do? So then Dawson looks like the crazy one.
He does.
And so
But is he? That's the question we have to ask ourselves.
I mean, he kissed his girlfriend. I think, it's understandable reaction.
And he's in the place in his mind where he doesn't know what the hell's going on in his life.
He doesn't have any, and he doesn't even really have any context for the kiss at all. He just hears this little bit of the conversation. So Jen ends up going home with Jack. He ends up walking her home. And Joey and Dawson end up having this conversation. And it's kind of a mentioned thing. They see Christy and her boyfriend fighting earlier in the episode in front of everybody. And they kind of make this promise that they're not going to be embarrassing and have these fights in front of people. But of course, they end up having this ugly fight about the kiss. Yes. And she's trying to explain to him that she didn't kiss him back, that he kissed her and she couldn't do anything about it. And then she kind of criticizes him for being super melodramatic about things and turning it into a bigger thing than it needs to be. And then he kind of takes it personally.
For once, I don't think he is.
Yeah, I think he's has a kind of fair reaction. So they end up having an ugly fight in front of everyone watching, like they kind of promised they wouldn't. And so they don't really resolve anything. He goes home and Joey, I think, is in his room. And they end up kind of trying to hash it out. And he's pissed still. And then she kind of does come to this, they realize that something has just been off lately between the two of them. And so she
it's all this situation of basically, since we got together, something's gotten worse, which is weird, right? Why would that have happened?
Like, I care about you so much, and you're all I've ever thought about. You're all I've ever wanted. And now that I have you, I realize I don't really have anything for myself. You have your whole future mapped out. You want to be a director and go to Hollywood and do all these big things. I don't have that. All I have is you. And while I love
Yeah.
you and you make me so happy, I feel so lost within myself. I don't have anything for me. I don't have any love for myself because I don't know what I want for myself. And
Do
he's
we
like,
think this is an outrageously wise thing of Joey to come out
I
with as a
think it is.
16-year-old?
I think it makes sense because it's like
It does.
where Jen breaking up with Dawson felt like it made no goddamn sense.
No sense at all.
Yes, she really didn't have a good reason. This makes sense and is established from something we saw from the beginning. She only was ever obsessed with Dawson from the episode 1. We could tell she had feelings for Dawson. Pacey could tell, everyone could tell she had feelings for Dawson. And we never really see her jump into anything that was her own or wasn't with Dawson or anything like that. So we
No.
never see her expressing any interests outside of hanging out with Dawson. So when she gets to this place that now she has him, it makes it completely clear to her that she doesn't have her own things. And then even
Yeah.
when Dawson is like, we'll find it together kind of thing, she's like, no, this can't include you because that is the problem in the first place. So I think it's really mature of her to come to that realization, to give up Dawson, something she's wanted for so long, something that's making
Yeah.
her happy, to make herself happy first. And knowing that she can't completely serve a relationship, she can't serve, being with him when she is not serving herself.
Yeah.
So a really
Which
mature
is
conclusion to come to. And she's about to leave. Dawson says, I love you. She says, I love you
oh
too.
God.
Yeah.
Look,
And she still ends up leaving. And he's like, we can't just say I love you for the first time and then have it be over. And she just says goodbye and goes. And she kind of lingers. And I'm always wonder, like, was she waiting for him to kind of go after her?
yeah, see, I don't know. I really think this is such a grandiose scene to have
Yeah.
happened. I think that the probably the biggest scene since the finale of season 1, right? I would probably say, of the show. So I just feel like that it needs painting in this way of, you understand totally Joey's mentality on the whole situation, right? You just really, really do, to find things to do and things to love individually. Is obviously very, very important, because then you can go into a relationship with individual things to do and together things to do. And you need both. You can't have one or the other, because if you just do individual things, then you might as well not be together. And if you just do together things, then it feels like if you don't have that, you have absolutely nothing, which is the point here. But she doesn't have that, so she needs that first. So she wants to get back to her and Dawson eventually, as I think is explained, as I think is understood. She wants to get back to her and Dawson eventually. Whether Dawson's going to be happy with that or not, we don't know. You know, because you've seen the show, but I don't know.
Yes.
So,
but also,
yes, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I've now forgotten what I was saying. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I mean, I think it's also a case of her, I think, finding other things outside of Dawson, in terms of relationships, and because she's having a relationship with somebody who she's known her whole life. So I think the idea of somebody like Jack, who has different interests and she can talk to on a different level, and it's not the same as Dawson. I think she's open to exploring those kinds of meetings of other people as well. So, I think she's just kind of wanting to expand her life fully beyond just Dawson in every kind of capacity.
And as I say, I completely understand it, but I also completely understand Dawson in this scene, who, yes, does do the horrifically overdramatic thing of just, I love you, Joey.
Yeah.
And yes, it is said back. It is reciprocated. And yet she still leaves. And that's the key.
And
That's the key.
how she plays this hesitation. Like, she is so good, and she's the youngest one on the show, like,
Yeah.
so incredibly, and it's just funny to me that, like, on the show, she was always the most talented one, and then
And
outside
she's
and
done
now
the
in the and
least since.
yes, and, like,
Well,
Michelle Williams
to
is
be
the one
fair,
getting all the Oscar nominations and things.
yeah.
Yeah,
To be fair,
um,
I mean, her and Vanderbeek have done little of absolute note
yes,
since Dawson's Creek,
yeah.
which is obviously a long time ago. And Michelle Williams definitely had the best
Ye
career.
Oh, yes, which is funny because on this show, the juiciest roles I think Katie Holmes is actually the only person to be in every single episode because there are some episodes that don't
Right.
have people, and she's the
Okay.
only one who I think is noted as being in every single episode of the show for every
Okay.
season. So, and yeah, the performance she gives in the show is incredible. So the fact that she kind of went on to not really do very much, and other people have done other huge things, is kind of funny. But yes, I mean when he says "I love you," and she's like wants to be happy and she says it back and she kind of smiles a little bit and she goes in to kiss him and then she stops herself and remembers kind of her mission of what she needs to do
Yeah.
and pulls away and still goes. Like, so well done. So well
It's
handled. And
great.
so she kind
I've
of
now
lingers
realized.
outside the window, kind of maybe even contemplating if she should go back in, if
Yeah.
he should come and get her, but she ultimately goes, and Dawson kind of just starts destroying stuff in his room, kicks down the ladder, and it's a whole kind of
Which
dramatic situation.
look, he's been very, throwing punches, throwing things around,
Yeah, a very
shouty,
heated
shouty.
evening.
I'm gonna be, very hitting out at things
Yes,
today, hasn't
yes.
he, as Dawson? Which is,
Yeah,
again, is understandable because he is now having to deal with the actual separation of Mitch and Gale. That
yes.
is being. I want to briefly just touch on as we end
Oh,
this
yes.
episode
Mhm.
because that's a struggle for them two. It's a decision that he's made, and I'm glad that it's a decision that he's made because it feels somewhat. Even though we're just going to try it for a little, just make a goddamn decision. We're just going to try it for a little bit. Right, okay. At least it's a decision that he's made. At least
Yeah.
we're going separate,
Yeah, so they sit
and
Dawson down and they tell him, and they kind of make it clear to him, like, "You don't have a say in this, we're just
yeah,
letting you know.
yeah.
And so we're gonna
Which is
try
why
this."
he's getting all up in
Yes.
himself.
Yeah, so Mitch ultimately moves out. And, oh, just the scene of Gale just as he drives away, just bawling, and
Oh
then
yeah, it's horrible.
Dawson getting ready for the dance, and she has her back turned to him, and I think it looks like she's wearing one of Mitch's shirts too,
Mm,
so just that added little detail,
yeah,
and she's, like, chopping up vegetables, and he's like, "Mom, like, I don't have to go to the dance, I can stay." And she's like, "No, it's okay, I'm fine, it's just the onions." And he's like, I'm perfectly fine, I'm okay." And he's like, "Will you turn around and tell me that?" And she just won't turn around, she just keeps
yeah,
moving in the kitchen, keeping her back to him, you can tell she's crying. Just great performance from I think Mary Margaret Humes is the name of the actress who plays his mom. But yes,
however,
I mean,
it lasts all
yes.
of 3 seconds before they're talking on the phone with each other again.
Well, yes. Mitch is sitting in his hotel, eating his crappy Chinese, just feeling down in the dumps, and so he does decide to call her and kind of make a funny little joke, and so you can tell he like misses her, he misses not being home. So despite the struggle he had being there, being with her, being intimate with her, all these things, he still loves her, he still misses her. So
Yeah,
when he has to be separate, and like they have this kind of really interesting conversation. She's like, "I realize like we have a really big house. Like our house is so big." And then he kind of puts it into a perspective. It's just not big enough for the two of us right now. Like,
yeah,
so we just need this time. And he's like, and she's like, "I don't think I can do this." He's like, "You can do it because you have to." And so, the fact that he's missing her already, maybe
mm.
that means it's a good thing. Maybe it's working. Maybe him
Maybe
being
they just
without
need that.
her will show him that he needs her, because he already is,
Yes.
his first thought when he's just kind of in this down and out dumps motel eating his caca Chinese, he's like,
Yeah,
I miss her.
because
His first thought is to call her. So that's
he
got to
needs that.
mean something. He needs to come to that realization that he
She
misses
doesn't
her.
need that.
No,
Gail
because
doesn't need that because
she's been
Gail's
wanting to
all in
stay in
to
it.
continue.
Yeah. Yes, and she's struggling and all of that. So, yeah, I think we get a lot of interesting stuff from Mitch and Gail finally at least pulling the trigger on a decision and something.
Yeah.
It's really well performed to see the two of them kind of struggling with it. We even see Mitch kind of come and drive by the house later in the evening.
Yeah.
So yeah, great performance from those actors, and their story, how it's developing, I think was really well done for sure in these 2 episodes.
I've realized as well why Katie Holmes didn't go on to have the career she should have done.
Oh yes, because Mr. Cruz.
Yes, because
Cruz
of
daddy.
let's call it the trapped relationship.
Yeah, I mean that was
the
a
marriage
totally.
of trapping.
I mean that was a totally staged relationship. Like I'm pretty sure that the Church of Scientology bought her for him because just to go off on a tangent, like when he was on Oprah and he talked about how they met, it was just so
Yes.
weird. It was literally like my people called her people to set up a date. Is kind of how he described it. That he just like called her on the phone one day. Like you don't even know her. Like what? And yeah, and she had Batman Begins coming out.
She
He had
did.
World
Yes.
coming out. So this is an up and coming starlet. She's beautiful, she's young, she's in this big movie, she has a bright career ahead of her, perfect to make you look normal, and we'll pay her.
Perfect
We'll do
to
it.
make you not look like a complete weirdo.
Exactly. And then he proceeds to jump on the couch like a fucking weirdo. And we'll set up a contract in so many years. You need to have a kid. The marriage will last so and so long. Like it felt like a very contracted thing. Have a baby, da 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 da. And then when the Church of Scientology became too much for her, she had to kind of step away, took the daughter with her. They do no longer even communicate anything with him. So all of that felt like a very staged by a wife for Tom Cruise Scientology church because he's weird and we need to make him not look weird.
That's what ruined Katie Holmes' career.
Yeah, so she didn't really do much of anything after that because of being tied to him in the church and probably suppressed things. And I think she did probably want to take a lot of time to take care of her daughter and be there for her in that kind of weird situation and scenario. So that probably also took her away from a career, was taking care of her daughter and kind of protecting her from the craziness of all of that. So yeah, makes perfect sense why she didn't have the career. And if you hear Bulldog snoring, yeah, my dog he refused to leave the room. So just warning on that front. But yeah.
I am certainly very interested to see what comes next. It felt rather finale-ish.
Yes. So the next episode it's gonna be pretty fun and
fun. I mean, how can it be fun? When you say fun, do you mean fun, or when you say fun, do you mean intense?
It's gonna be fun and a little bit intense. So the next episode is the all-nighter where they have this big test. So a bunch of them are kind of main crew of people along with this kind of party guy who kind of is into Jen. They all decide to go to his house where his parents aren't home to have an all-night study session. And he's got a hot tub. And he's got a hot tub, and then they end up all kind of playing this like relationship magazine quiz, and certain people's answers cause a little bit of drama in terms of different things. And like the little sister of the guy has a crush on Dawson, so that's a whole thing. And so it's them up all night, tensions and emotions, and Dawson becomes very protective of Jen because the kind of cool guy is kind of a creep and he's kind of all over her. So yeah, it's very complicated emotions happening at this all-night study session. So it's a fun episode.
Complicated Emotions is the name of the game in Dawson's Creek, and there's only more ahead, and I'm excited for it. As I said, I'm in. This was a crazy 2 episodes, and I can't wait for more. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Discovering Dawson's Creek. Do subscribe and ding your notification bell on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Do subscribe to the main podcast feed, of course, for the main show, It's a Wonderful Podcast, for Morgan Hasn't Seen, for Monday Madness as well. You can support us on Patreon or donate if you so choose. There are links in the description to do that. We've had social media and things scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long. You can find links and stuff for that in the description as well. Anything else we have to say? I don't think so. Jeannine. Maybe it's just time. I'm not going to ask you to do a whiny Dawson because it's not valid today.
No,
valid.
His feelings were validated a little bit, I think, in these episodes. So
they were weird situations.
Yes. Good job, Dawson.
There, you pat his head on your little figure. Yes, you do that. Very, very patronizing to the figure of Dawson. Go ahead, count us down.
3, 2, 1.
Bye. Dawson.